confusing. I mean, nowhere in the history have we run 6 candidates. I mean, we started out with 8, went to 7, went to 6, then went back to 8, then went back to 7. I'm so confused. I don't even know who's running anymore. I know I'm running. That's one thing I know. But, you know, the pendulum, like I said, has swung back my directions according to, you know, this is what Chuck Williams said. And really, at the end of the day, we serve the people. That's the way I've always looked at it.
Yeah.
There's, you know, nothing strays outside of what I believe in, and that's black and white. If it's black and white and it's there, this is how I serve. I don't look in any direction. But I do want to talk about the other night, and it really kind of concerned me and bothered me from the fact that we were at the Davis Broadcasting Echo Latino newspaper thing at the forum that was put on by those two entities at the Citizen Service Center at the council chambers. And I'm going to tell you, that was a cheerleader event for Isaiah Hughley. It was.
It usually is when it comes to that one.
I mean, the purple people were there, you know, and the Omega Brother purple people were all there. You had all of the organizations that were all part of them. They were there and asking these questions. There was a couple of good questions, but I'm going to tell you now that I know Isaiah Hughley needed that. That was like the cheerleaders out there. They're like, oh. And then when I spoke, they were like, looked like they were at a funeral or something. And the other candidates, other than Isaiah, they were like, oh, wow, he's so smart. And
yeah, and that's actually why I really appreciate a lot of the candidates that have been willing to go to these other places, but also why I appreciate your show, because you're willing to, and they were willing to, not be so biased as to who they were cheerleading for. I mean, pretty much most of us that have been awake and have done our research understand that Wayne Hales is going to be the establishment news puppet for the Omega Brothers, Sheriff Countryman, and, and so it's like, I think about that. It's really important, and I think it shows character when people are not willing to remain unbiased. And again, I think that points back to this race not being partisan.
Yeah.
I mean, not being nonpartisan.
Yeah, I agree. And look, folks, this is not a racial issue. To me, it's not.
Well, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but it's turned that way. And this is the wrong, for all the wrong reasons why Isaiah Hughley ran or is running for mayor. I'm not disagreeing with a black candidate running for any political offices, but pick the right guy. Don't pick this guy who got terminated. I mean, folks, I got a piece of paper here that links him to 20 different issues for over 40 years that he was either directly involved with or had some involvement with it. And to me, you want to put your best foot forward. African Americans, by all means, run for these offices. Put your best candidates forward, not a guy who got terminated. Now, I said to Chuck Williams today on that interview that I'd done, and he said, do you think it was the right thing to terminate him? I said, yes, it was the right thing to terminate him because of what he was linked to. And we know this is all evidence, but the thing that I criticize the most, and I know who initiated this, it was Charmaine Crabb initiated it. I get it. I understand. And the other council members, but there were also 2 black council members that signed on to that letter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the other thing that I would have done, and you know this, Julia, is because you've been through pre-law courses, was this a complete packet? Did it cover all the 40 years of things that he's been involved in? You see what I'm saying? When we talk about prima facie, right, which is the evidence at hand, you make a case. And this is the thing that I disagreed with on that part of the firing, the termination, was that the whole termination thing should have been more than just a couple pieces of letter, okay? It should be like a 40-page investigation that, boom, he's linked to this. Boom, he's linked to that. Boom, he's linked to this. This is what happened. Because that's the fair thing to do, is make sure that it's linked to everything in the case. Now, I don't know what the hell the city attorney was doing, but he's supposed to be advising the council on issues those types of issues. And because of being law enforcement, I'm used to case presentation.
Yeah.
And that's not what I think we got here. I think, we got, a firing is what we got. And it's crazy. I don't, what do you think about it? But
okay, so I actually did some research for that, and I put something out on that because, I wanted to go ahead and look at some of the things that were tied to Isaiah as well. Like I was combing through a lot of the campaign disclosures for some of the candidates. And, I started just kind of looking into, especially when I ended up seeing the documentation that I believe was linked from Charmaine. I'll just say that. And I did a video about that. But I saw that, there was an issue with a claim of discrimination for his termination. And so I wrote about all that, and I ended up leveraging that the way that this was handled. I don't think that it was right in how it was handled. I do think that it needed to be handled, but I agree with what you were saying that we needed to do a little bit more investigation, because if we would have really looked into that 118-page sheriff's investigation, which I did,
was it a dismal failure?
There was a criminal violation that Isaiah was responsible for, and just because the district attorney, who is Wayne Jernigan, and he's from Marion County where I live, and you kind of see the good old boys network there, he just decided, oh, well, there's people on here that, we're either going to claim statute of limitations or we're not going to prosecute them, which seems a little coincidental and convenient in my book. But I think that agreeing with you, there should have been a little bit more of an investigation.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said I'm just used to putting case law together, case and a case investigation together, and handing it off to the DA. That's what I'm used to doing. And that's what I would have preferred to see, so that at the end, whatever the decision was, whether it was criminal charges or whatever it was, I want to see what the person was charged with, or did they decide was there a legal issue to charge Isaiah Hughley for something, or is a moral issue? At the very least, and we even know that the two people, or at least one person, the finance director, is still there. And we know where there's smoke, there's fire. And we know that there were business license issues. There's millions of dollars, whether it's accountable or not. That was the issue, because one person actually, a guy stood up in the audience and he asked that question. He said, do we know where the finance department investigation's going? Do we know, can we talk about it? And I said something from it. I said, there ain't no more information than what we already know. The public was never completely informed about what had happened, whether there wasn't $45.1 million missing, whether it was all accountable for. I know the mayor danced all around it for a thing. But when you're going to have something like that, put it out there for the people to see and let them know this is what the result was. A forensic audit, determined this, or it didn't. The investigation determined that. But at the very least, even there was $200,000 that were missing. It was income. The finance director was incompetent in her job, and she should have lost her job, and she didn't.
Yeah, but I kind of want to play devil's advocate on that, because, again, I've done a lot of the open records requests, like you would have me do some of those things. And, I ended up seeing that it wasn't so much that I saw that these people that were in the HR department or the finance department that were doing wrong. Because at the end of the day, it was Isaiah's approvals that I saw on everything. And from where I come from, and I don't know, maybe there's something different about this, but when I'm a manager, I am held accountable for what my employees do, even if I didn't do it, because I have a responsibility to provide oversight. And so where you have all these people in the animal control that were arrested.
Oh, that's another issue.
And where were any of the investigations into email traces or phone calls that were made? Hey, Isaiah, this is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. Hey, don't worry about it. Keep on going. Not that that's the conversation that happened, but, you can't say that you're an effective manager or that you are successful in doing what you're doing when the people underneath you are failing.
Well,
and then you're throwing them under the bus.
Yeah, look, I look at this like if you're a captain in the military, okay, and it's no difference in the business world. I'm telling you right now, there's no difference. But you're in the business world and you're a manager and you've got all these people working under you, and somebody does a major, excuse my language, fuck up, and they do a major fuck up. And all of a sudden, what happens is it comes down from the real high top level, from maybe the ownership of the company through the stockholders or CEOs or whatever it comes down to. In the military, it would come up from like a secretary, a general's action or whatever come down. And it flows, we call that the crap flowing down the hill. And that's what it does. And it rolls everybody up in it. Everybody from the captain, company commander, battalion commander, to the individual who created the problem, to whatever it does. And people's heads roll. Their jobs get gone. They get fired. They get thrown out of the military. They've done. That's my point, is that's what I look at it. But a city manager who has 2 deputy city managers, by the way, one of the only ones in the state that had 2, and he got this exorbitant amount of money, over $200,000 he was paid for that job. I mean, holy cow, you can't get a better situation, but a city manager needs to know, and it's spelled out in the city charter, by the way. I have the city charter, or part of the job description, but it's spelled out. You should know every one of your directors.
Yep.
You should know every one of your of their assistant directors and who they could be. And you should have, all of the police chief and the EMT and the EMS and all those folks, the dispatchers and all that stuff. They work under the city management issue, and they're broken down into 2 groups between 2 deputy city managers. But you should be bringing those people in and having meetings and saying, hey, did you guys hear about this? This is what came out in the city council meeting. I'm going to let you brief you on there. But that didn't happen. There was and you have researched this, but there was an issue with the sports authority when 2 of his directors came in and they were asking city council whether they're going to lose their job or not.
Yeah.
And of course, Isaiah Hughley threw his hands up and go,
I wasn't at that meeting.
I wasn't at that meeting. I didn't know anything about it, which was a bald-faced lie. I got the paperwork here where you were there. You did the research on it.
We went back there and we found the video of the council meetings of that where
you must have been asleep or something. Maybe you were typing on your phone, like some of them other city council members like doing. They don't pay attention to those meetings, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think about too, like going back to what you were saying about the pay that Isaiah is getting. Like why if he was fired, why are we paying him retirement?
Oh, I know.
Like why are we doing that? I can't think of anybody who would get terminated and not get and be able to get something like that without a severance agreement. And in those documents that I saw, that I didn't really see one of those.
So, getting back to that Davis Broadcasting issue the other day. Listen, I want to thank Davis Broadcasting and Echo Latino, Courier, Echo Latino newspaper for, allowing us to attend the event. But I'm going to tell you what, it felt like sitting in that city council chambers and the people that were there, it felt like I was in a lion's den. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I felt so uncomfortable and so uneasy that, it sounded like they were preparing us like we were in a meat market. Like you go into a meat market and there's that, all the meats there, the old style meat market, and all of the cuts are there. I felt like raw meat there. I really did. I felt like I was in raw meat and that I was waiting for the next lion to come up and pick his steak out. I'm serious, man.
It reminds me of Mufasa and Scar and with all the hyenas.
Yeah. I felt super uncomfortable. You could feel the stress in there, especially the people looking back at you. And like I said earlier, we'd say something in response to it. We didn't get a response on anything, just people looking at you with those dumb looks in the audience.
Do you feel that was intentional?
It was absolutely intentional, especially when you got Isaiah Hughley shirts on they look like billboard signs on the front of their shirts. And everybody was there and they're going, oh, Isaiah spoke, oh my God. And you should have heard the closing argument that I had in that, and that was a good one. And basically, somebody hollered out in the audience. I said, you've heard a lot of stuff out here tonight. You've heard a lot of lies, a lot of innuendos, and a lot of rumors. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing that. And I said, Isaiah never covered the issues. He danced all around it. He danced all around the questions, how his experience was there, and, $1 billion of projects, and he's done this and he's done that. With all those qualifications you have and all the negative stuff that we found in relationship to that, that doesn't wash.
No.
None of that washes.
No.
None of that. You cannot derive that argument from there. You cannot. And that's what I'm saying. There's like, look, the way this is we wanted the first black sheriff. Well, you got that. Now we wanted the first black mayor in there. And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that premise at all. But put a qualified guy in there or gal, somebody that's qualified that doesn't have such a negative background behind him. And the fact that the guy just got fired. And now you're going to bring him in. And I have to laugh at these things. And he calls back and he says, I'm going to be the healer of the division and chaos. Dude, you created the division and chaos. That's like you got a hen house out there with the chickens in it, and you're like, hey, Mr. Fox, would you watch that hen house? Okay, watch them chickens, make sure they don't get out. Yeah, I'll bet you would.
Well, I think we talked about this too, about how, like, in my research of, how a lot of these people function, they operate off of the motto, Ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. You create the chaos so that you can create the order. But I am not going to give him that much weight, because honestly, what I believe is the chaos is there because we uncovered that. And when I say we, I do know that through your campaign, we had a lot to do with that. Like, we planted certain things in certain places to get the people to wake up, and they started digging and asking questions. I mean, I remember when, we had a citizen send us the video from council where Donna was talking about the $45 million. And so we highlighted that and we sent that out. So it's like, if we, the people, are the ones that are uncovering what you did, that doesn't mean that we're the chaos. It means that we're the ones stirring up what you were doing in secret. So if you're going to clean up the chaos, does that mean that you're going to do the right thing now? Yeah. And I don't really have any faith in that.
We can't expect that the right thing is going to be done when the chicken's already been let out of the barn already. That's the way it is. But like I said, I felt like I was waiting for the lion to pick the next choice cut of meat. That's what it felt like in there. It wasn't very welcoming. I'm going to tell you, it was not a welcoming crowd out there. Yes, there's some folks, I always mention Marvin Broadwater. He's always there. He's one of the purple people also, and he's always at the city council meeting. He was good enough to come and shake my hand and said, welcome and come. And he did give me kudos about it, but he also did mention the fact that Coggle never showed up either, which supposedly she had a prior event. I think that was, she didn't want to answer to, any tough or difficult questions. But
okay, and again, playing devil's advocate, if you felt that way at the Eco Latino thing, what if she just didn't go because she would feel the same way too?
Oh, I'm sure.
And I think about how I just had a citizen that used to work for the Columbus Consolidated Government call me, and they were just kind of asking, my input on what was going on and what she experienced. And, when you have people in the government that are telling you that every time that they're around Isaiah Hughley and they don't feel that they can talk to him, they don't feel like he's approachable, what kind of oversight is really going on, And so if you're operating that way in the government, that's a character thing. You're going to do that anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, there's a video circulating. It was out a couple of weeks ago where he's standing in the city council meeting. I don't recall what it was, but he was basically browbeating somebody in the audience. It's like, you shut up. It's like my turn now to talk. And he was very rude. And is that what you're going to have as a mayor? Oh, my God, really? But, like you said, you mentioned about the Coggle thing. It doesn't.
And by the way, it's Kogel.
Okay, Kogel.
We had someone who used to work for the news media make sure to correct us.
Yeah, all right, Kogel. Yeah, I got it.
Let's be respectful.
I'm respectful. Yeah, they screw up my name so bad sometimes. Anyway, but the bottom line is if you don't show up and one of the persons that I talked to of there said, those are your constituents.
Yeah.
It might be a meat market, but you know what? That's what you signed up to run for. So, you should be there. They are your constituents. They're the taxpayers. They're the people you got to answer to. And you were one of the people who signed that letter. So if there's difficult questions, I don't have any sympathy for you. I'm sorry. I showed up, and I knew it was a meat market. I showed up. I was there, and I did what I had to do. And I knew that it was. I mean, I just pointed out all the facts that it was uncomfortable. The venue was totally set up for Hughley. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that had happened. But I attended, and I didn't back down. And I kept my position exactly the way I kept it all the time that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
So.
And I think about that from like a professional standpoint, because I mean, I know Wayne has done some hit pieces on you in the past, and
oh boy,
and so
did he?
Yeah. So, but I think about how that shows that you're the bigger person, that you're willing to go somewhere where you know that you're not liked. And I think that speaks a lot to if there are other people that you're serving in this position. I'm going to say when you get elected, because I'm going to speak in faith. Not that I'm like padding anything, but I know words are powerful.
Yeah.
But like all that to be said, like we know that if you're going to be in this position, there's going to be lots of people that don't like you, that they don't want you there. They don't think that you should have been there, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't maintain a level of ethics when you're dealing with them.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a certain level of ethics that I'm going to continue. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be straightforward. I'm going to be black and white. I'm going to conduct city council meetings the way they should be and, conducted. And there's nothing more than that. I mean, but I also do want people to understand that I want to be respectful, especially to the people who come and speak at these city council meetings. I really do, because some people really put their heart and their research into when they come up and speak on these things. And I think it's our responsibility to let them speak. They cut them off at 5 minutes. Oh, you can come back and do another 3 minutes after all of that. You're rushing that person through there. I don't know if we need to extend the council meeting another hour or whatever it needs to be, but the people need to come up and be able to voice their opinions on what they are.
Well, I'm glad that you're bringing that up, because, just real quick before I touch on what I wanted to touch on, and just answering what you talked about, like, why can't we increase their time to like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Because you already have an agenda. You already know who's going to speak. So why would you not give them a little bit of extra time? And if you know that 10 minutes per each person is going to be there, then why not go ahead and say, well, I've only got 3 people here. So, and maybe we can accommodate those.
Yeah.
But the other reason that I wanted to talk about the council meeting is I just wanted to ask, did you see where Skip Henderson had the woman that came to talk about the data center cut off because she wouldn't provide the county in which she resided?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, open records, right? Freedom of information, all that kind of stuff. That's why I kept talking about, we don't know enough of what's going on in that data center. We don't know the background of the players. We don't know, well, we have an idea who sold the property to who. But the players that are involved, and I think, again, I've been opposed to the data center for a very good reason. There's not enough data out there as to what the environmental issues are going to be, what electricity issues. We're hearing that electricity could increase threefold. I mean, I don't want to pay more in my bills than I have to pay. But the worst part of that is, and we're talking about water contamination for all these supercomputers and things that are going on. There's just so much. I don't know what the rush is to push this thing, to get it out there and push. I think that if we hold enough of these meetings, and I know they've held the meetings, but there's not enough, in my opinion, there's not enough information where we're talking about, what's going on environmentally wise. I mean, this is our community, and we got to drink the water. And I don't know what you think about that, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, well, I think we have one, maybe 2. I think really, I only remember one specifically saying, I don't want a data center here. And I think that that's actually a little bit more of the popular idea, because I mean, a lot of us tend to go by our gut. Like, we're doing our research, we're looking at other counties in Georgia, we're looking at other states that have had these data centers. And if I'm being honest, like, just a lot of this legislation and the delay and the, this and that and the overlay, it just seems like a lot of, like, to me, hogwash, and a little bit of like, let's play Ring Around the Rosie or musical chairs that we can kind of just, like, ideally we want to do what we want to do, but we're going to give you the appearance that we're considering it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a lot of things that the council does and everything else is nothing but a bunch of eyewash that they end up doing. But getting back to what we were talking about this Davis Broadcasting thing, and you already mentioned it, was, Wayne Hales hasn't exactly been my biggest fan. As a matter of fact, when I ran in 2020, he ran a hit piece on me, a half-page hit piece about why did LaJoy get fired? And that's when I worked for Woodbury Police Department. And by the way, Wayno, I was not fired, okay? As a matter of fact, I submitted a letter of resignation the same day that you think I got fired, okay? And, I even got, and I know how all the information was derived from, because I have here a request that was submitted, open records request from, here it is.
Read it.
From PLSI, Professional Legal Services and Investigation, dated August 21, 2020.
Ooh, you were being followed.
Yeah. So this was submitted to Woodbury, which was the police department that I worked at, right? And Smart Webb, who's not very smart, by the way. He's been fired in a whole bunch of jobs. But Andrew Spikes was the guy, but it was submitted by somebody else. And it says, to whom it may concern, this company has been retained to locate and retrieve public records information on me, right? According to open records request. What they wanted to do, because I was running for sheriff, is they couldn't find any dirt on me.
Yeah.
Because look, I've made mistakes in my life, but I've owned up to them, and I said it was a good thing. But I intercepted this letter, and it was sent on a fax machine by David Harucci, who is a former police officer in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, who works for this organization.
So was he doing that with his official capacity as a police officer?
No, he was not. He was. I think he overseen the chair at Troy State University, the criminal justice program, and yeah, that's another story in itself. We can talk about that one day.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's lots of other private investigative firms.
Yeah.
So was there like a conflict of interest, like a connection?
Yeah, I don't know. But it says, please accept this letter undersigned, request under Georgia Open Records Act for any and all records in any investigation of the entire personnel file, Mark LaJoy. So basically, Wayne Hales somehow got this information. I don't know whether he requested it or paid for it, or whether it was the sheriff or the candidate for sheriff at the time, the opposition, whether he requested it or not. But here it is right here. And I got it. I intercepted it from the fax machine because somebody told me this is what was going on. And just kind of give a follow-up story behind that. What ended up happening is that it's right here. The Meriwether Deputy Clerk of Magistrate Court was arrested for sexual exploitation of children. It just so happened that morning I was working when the GBI came in and basically did a raid on the home. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I went over there to assist them, obviously, because I'm a law enforcement officer. And I was basically told to mind my own business. You go about shaking your doors and doing the things that cops are supposed to do, right? So I did. And then that morning, by the time I left, my relief was on. And I told them, I said, don't go over there. I said, there's a big-time investigation going. And the fact was that, there was an arrest was made, and there were some issues with that. But I filed shortly after that. Not only did I file the resignation, but I also filed an employee complaint against the supervisor, who was a sergeant there. And there was constant, and this is the employee complaint that I'd filed against her. And of course, they stopped talking to me and they clammed up right away. And I told them, I said, it's just like this. But the day that I walked in and handed my shit in, I'll tell you exactly who was sitting in the conference room that day and who was there. But
who was it? Come on now.
Some guy named the sheriff here.
Oh, you mean Greg? You mean Greg was there?
He was there.
Well, what was he doing there?
Good question. And Smart Web was there, and some other folks were there. He was still marshal then at the time. But the bottom line is, this is what happened. So Wayne publishes this hit piece, right, on me with all this stuff without getting any kind of facts or information, right? And he was like, well, probably that was the facts then. You didn't get all the information, Wayno. But the bottom line is...
Wayno.
Yeah, I call him Wayno. But, he shook my hand the other night, but you could feel the tension in the room. It was so bad,
Yeah.
So anyway, he wrote the half-page hit piece on me. And then, we get this guy, I call him Scumbag Private Eye, who, him and his organization were investigating me like I was some freaking criminal, like I did something. I'm proud of my career, and I've made mistakes and stuff like that, but I've always owned up to them. And when I didn't own up to them, I made sure that I would never make them again.
Well,
and,
I'm a firm believer in the criminal mind when it comes to a lot of these people. And just some of the things that I have seen, I see what appears to be the criminal mind. And so a lot of times when you're learning about the criminal mind, these people will accuse you or think that they're going to find something on you because it's really something that they know that they have and they're trying to deflect.
Yeah.
And so, I just kind of wonder if, I feel like I already know the answer, but I kind of wonder if that's what was really going on.
Well, probably. I can't say that with any certainty.
But keep going. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot more stuff, folks. We could run this a 2-hour program if we wanted to. But it's crazy how this stuff, behind the scenes. And, and Wayne is with his, it's a horrible newspaper, by the way. He claimed he represents the Spanish people in Columbus, and he's an equal vote for them. That's horseshit. That's all horseshit. And the bottom line is he's not. But, I am part of the Hispanic community because my wife is from Mexico. So,
hola.
Yeah, so
Hola,
hola.
Dora.
Yeah. Martha is my wife, and we've been married for 45 years.
Yay.
And I'm so close to the Spanish community, it's ridiculous. I, speak Spanish. I know the Spanish community well. That Spanish bloc is going to be the bloc that's going to vote for me because of those reasons. And I understand the Spanish. I got 45 years of experience living with a Hispanic person, and I understand the Hispanics. So, Wayno, you don't represent this Hispanic community. I'm sorry to say that, but they look at you like a joke. But the bottom line is he's so racial. When he publishes things, the way he downgraded us in this last piece that he just put out, it was ridiculous. And then, of course, he had to mention the fact that I ran previous times, and that's a question of my management skills and leadership. And I was like...
That just means you don't give up.
Yeah. Look, folks...
that to me, that shows commitment.
How many times did Abraham Lincoln run for public office? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
I found 8.
Okay.
Twice as a senator. Twice as a senator that he ran. And twice as a president he ran, and finally won. Now... Trust me, I'm no Abraham Lincoln. That man was very good. He was the one that we fought a civil war over slavery. He's the man that, did that. And so he freed the slaves. When it really comes down to it. But I'm no Abraham Lincoln. But one of the things people don't understand is they use that as a negative connotation toward me by saying, oh, he's unsuccessful. Just like this crap here about trying to run this hit piece on me that happened back in 2020. They want to link that as he's unsuccessful. He shouldn't be running. Jesus, man. Wayno, your buddy got terminated for being horrible leadership I mean,
Yeah, but I think that they're in I think that they're in complete denial in that, or they're intentionally acting like they don't know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Because how can you not see the failure, and
right.
how can you not be convicted about what other people are saying about it?
Right. I agree. And the thing is, the Columbus Council, when they did this, they finally said he got fired. City manager got fired, Isaiah Higley, due to ongoing operational failures, lapses in oversight in the department under his supervision. We just talked about that. Lack of oversight. That means you weren't paying attention to what the hell was going on in your departments. I mean, that could get somebody killed. And the worst decision that he ever made, right, was the animal control issue. And there's a person up here who's a big supporter of hers, Teresa Elamine, old Teresa. Teresa loves some Isaiah Higley. And she said, but she has spoken in racial terms. I mean, she's like, we're going to replace every white folk on the city council. We're going to place all the folk on the mayor's position. And she's very, very adamant about it. But the animal control issue was, I think, the worst thing that he ever overseen. Because, and I'll tell you why. When Paz took over, Paz initiated a contract, or I think there was a contract was initiated for $3.5 million. And he negotiated it down to $3.2 million. Wow. Great job, Isaiah. You did a super job of saving us a lot of money. No, you didn't. First of all, we should have, the animal control, under your direction and supervision, should have, and by the way, the two directors and the assistant director that you knew, okay, personal friends of yours, that the bottom line was you didn't oversee animal control at all. They were riding on cruise control out there. The things that were being done out there, the euthanization of animals and things. Who was handling ketamine, which is the drugs that were handled over there? Only the veterinarian can handle ketamine, but other people were handling it in the euthanization process that was out there.
Yeah, and I remember when you were actually talking to a lot of the animal community, like advocates. Do you remember who it was that you talked to?
I don't recall now. I mean, it's all kind of distant fuzziness.
Yeah, I know it's been a little while, but
yeah.
I do know that we have a very strong, alive and well animal community, and
Still.
I definitely want to give props to them for catching that, for doing the request that they needed to, and bringing that into the light.
And that's great that they were able to do that. I think that's awesome, and I think there needs to be oversight like that. Since we ain't getting oversight, we didn't get it from the city manager's office, which is their job.
Yeah,
right?
and why do we as the people have to be the ones that are providing accountability?
I know.
Why do we have to spend time doing open records requests and all of these things, like, if you're doing your job?
Yeah, that's it. And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of agencies within the Columbus Consolidated Government that we need to look heavily on who our directors are. We need to see who our managers are, what they're doing and what they're not doing. I said this, that I will, as mayor, I will conduct a forensic audit of all of the agencies within the Columbus Consolidated Government, because I'm not going to raise my right hand as mayor and swear that I'm going to support and defend, the state and laws of Columbus, Georgia, and the Constitution, and the U.S. Constitution and laws of Georgia, and abide by all those rules if there's something in question. So we're going to make sure that there's a complete forensic audit on anything, any person that handles $1 worth of money. I don't care what it is, because look at what happened with the court system. Remember what happened?
Yeah.
$200 and some were left in the account. And I still reading things. I want to say it was 10.5 million, but I've seen like 6, 7, 8. I don't think we ever got we haven't got the real information as to what the total amount was, but that money was being sent to South Africa, and that guy worked directly
Willie
up
Demps.
under the city. Willie Demps worked up there, and of course there was no oversight. How the hell Do we have only $200 and some in the account? Was there, who the hell was looking at this? Was the city manager or the deputy city managers responsible? Were they directing the oversight to the auditor, internal auditor? What the hell was going on?
Well, I actually have a citizen that told me that it wasn't just him that was the one doing it.
No, it wasn't.
In fact, this person mentioned to me that she actually went up there to take out an application for a warrant for arrest on someone and saw the clerk pocket her money.
Well,
Didn't put it in the register. Didn't put it like she pocketed in the money or pocketed the money that the citizen gave her. And when the citizen asked for a receipt, she's like, "You don't need one."
yeah. When I worked in a program called conditional discharge, which was the adult side of a probation program that was overseen by the police officers. I worked on the juvenile side of the house, and then I worked on the adult side of the house. And let me tell you, the juvenile side of the house was very beneficial to me because it got me to put direct contact with the kids in the elementary schools, white, black kids. Most of the schools we went to were predominantly black elementary schools. And it was beneficial to me because they looked at us, the kids looked at us at a different side of the police officers, more like a trusting side. I don't know, maybe, I don't know what parents, how they grew up or whatever their background was. But the bottom line is after a while, we'd actually went into the schools and read books to them and stuff like that. And they actually opened up to us, which I thought was awesome. And I'd love to bring those programs back because I thought they were very beneficial. Yeah. But on the adult side of the house, we accepted money in if you had a misdemeanor, it was a 2-year program. If you had a felony, it was a 4-year program. And you paid for the administration of the drug testing that we were doing. And I was a qualified drug tester. I was testing them. And the second part of that was to pay for paper and supplies. Now, the actual budget that came out of there was paying, or the police department was paying our wages until the federal dollars ran out. When the federal dollars ran out, that's a bad habit of Columbus. You do a federal program when the dollars run out, it's not popular anymore. They go, woohoo, back away, put those people back where they used to work. They do it all the time. Every time there's a program, like, I know we got a GBI program here with the gang stuff. And then, all of a sudden, they got like $2 million in the account. Watch what happens when that money runs out. You'll think the plague, pew! You'll think you threw a rock against the wall. They'll clear out of here so fast and make your head spin. Because then what they're expecting to do is that the police department or the sheriff's office or whatever is involved in it is that they take up the responsibility. And they don't want to do that. And there's some programs that I think are completely beneficial at what we're supposed to be doing. And then I think there's just programs that are worthless, that are not worth it. And so we're going to take a heavy look at these programs and put money in the programs where money needs to be put in. I know there was a question about the $1 million or $800,000 that came up about the crime prevention fund and issues.
Yeah.
I said that I'd put $3 million in it. Because for the right reasons. And we need what you guys call is the receipts. We need the receipts, the information statistically is how do these programs work? Because I don't want to put good money before bad money. I really don't. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, so I was looking at some of the comments when we had talked about you putting more money into that into the crime grants. And the question was, why don't we just do away with them like completely? And honestly, where I stand on this. I think that because the charter says that it's the sheriff's job to operate the crime prevention program, I don't see why we need cure violence. I don't see why we need the crime prevention board. I think that that's just it's a little much.
Well, I agree with you on that part of it. That's why I'm saying the cure violence thing is a waste of money. It doesn't have good results, and the guy that's in charge of it here locally, I think he alluded to the fact that we wouldn't see any results for 10 years. When do you make an investment in a program and wait for it to accumulate to 10 years, whether you're going to make anything out of it or not? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I also did some research on that as well on the Cure Violence program, and it's actually like a pretty short TED Talk
Yeah.
that you can look at on YouTube. And what I thought was interesting is the guy that actually founded and started Cure Violence is a eugenicist, and I don't know if you know what eugenics is.
Yeah, I'm familiar with eugenics.
They're like all about natural selection,
Yeah.
kind of like Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was a little weird when someone who has a predisposition to let's figure out who has the weakest DNA versus the strongest DNA, and now let's align that with crime. And we're going to treat crime
like an infectious disease. Yeah.
Like, okay, so crime is kind of a disease, but it's a disease of the mind. It's a disease of the heart, in my opinion. Yeah. And so I just think that honestly, Cure Violence is a money. It's a money front.
Somebody just said recently, since we've got into the crime issue, that the WTVM said we don't have a gang problem. The Zohannans are no longer. Let me tell you something about this. I don't know where you're getting your information. Probably from the sheriff's intelligence guy.
Well, they said public
or
officials, but they didn't. Name
yeah,
them.
right. I know where it came from. I have an idea where it came from. But let me tell you something. That's why Teresa Tomlinson told us we never had a gang problem, okay? And this is what we're back to again, is like, well, you don't have any gang problem. Nothing to see here. Nothing to look for. Look, the state is inundated with gangs. They're in every rural county. Even if you've got a population of 24, 25,000, they're in your county, okay? They're identifying. Now, a lot of people say, well, they're wannabes. Well, they're not wannabes, because what they're doing is they're doing these pre-crimes so that they can qualify. And once they either get beat in or they do a crime to get accepted into the organization, that's what happens. So there's over 140 some thousand gang members across the state, and all 159 counties have a gang problem. So let's not go back to the crap where it's like, we don't have a gang problem in Columbus, Georgia. Well, yeah, we do. We have a gang problem.
Weren't you saying something to me earlier about how, like, ideally these gangs, they flow out of the two major gangs, which is the Crips and the Bloods. Mm-hmm. And then you said that the Rolling 60s, actually, they bred off, or they branched off certain sect into the ZHGs.
Yeah, they call sects.
The Zohannans, you know. But honestly, I did a lot of research for someone who was convicted of a murder in a 2021 gang murder, supposedly, over there in Wilson. And I ended up, as I was talking to one of the ladies who used to be in one of our gangs, she was actually telling me that the Zohannans are actually the most violent ones because they're the youngest, they're the most inexperienced, but they're the ones that like make the most messes, like because of their inexperience.
And you want to know that? Because what they're trying to do is get into the main, I'll just use common language so I don't use sets or sex or you know, those types of things. But the bottom line is they're trying to impress the up sides of those gangs that they're to be reckoned with, okay? They even did, folks, go on YouTube and look up Zohannans. It's there. They did a YouTube video professionally shot from this guy who interviews gang members, came right here to Columbus, Georgia, right? It was right over in South Columbus where old Baker Village used to be. And they shot video over there, and they're all standing up in front with guns and all that, pointing them at it in the video. Yeah, we don't have a problem. Zohannans are no longer here. They're waving guns around and all that other kind of stuff. Convince me that there isn't.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that for a minute, because I also remember you telling me when it comes to these statistics that were being told, like with the gang crimes and any other crime in particular. And so you were telling me, and you can, go into a little bit more details about how the crime reporting that our current police department is using for those stats is not actually relaying those stats correctly. Is that what you said?
Yeah. The NIBRS incident, NIBRS is an incident-based system, reporting system. It's NIBRS, and that's how most of the law enforcement agencies work in NIBRS, because it feeds into the DOJ report, right? And so all those information, it's basically a clearinghouse, all that information. And what happens is here locally, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want anybody to get in trouble or anything else. But the bottom line is we weren't, Columbus, we're famous for cooking the books. Back in the early 90s when I think it was mid 90s that I started in 92 at Columbus Police Department. We actually got caught cooking DOJ results, and it was a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the information was reported. So the way we've been reporting this crime in the past was that one-for-one crime was ported is one-for-one crime. If it's only one victim and there's 5 crimes with one victim, then there's 5 crimes. It's just not one. It is one victim, yes, but it's still 5 crimes, right? So you need to report each and every one of those things and classify them as such. But there was a comment that was made by the person who was actually doing the reporting on and uploading the data to that and bringing it back to the police chief and, whoever the assistant. That information was not accurate because they were reporting just one victim, one crime, or one victim in a series of crimes. You have to report each and every crime. But if there's 4 victims, one bad guy, bad girl commits a crime, but commits 4 crimes, or 4 different victims and 4 different crimes, you needed to report that each victim. Each victim is a separate crime in that case. Does that make sense?
Well, okay, and I saw that in a very real fashion because when I was doing the research for the hotel murder that happened over there off of, I guess what was it, Whittlesey or White? It's over there by Hollywood Connection or whatever that is. It's been a little while since I did the research, but supposedly that didn't even start out as like a murder or domestic. Like from what I saw, it started out as something that happened in the parking lot. And then all of a sudden it like branched off into 1, 2, and now 3 murders. And so but when I went to pull information from the dispatch, I couldn't find it by the people who were murdered in the Ledger Inquiry reports. I had to do research just by the address of the hotel. And I just saw that the original call that came in had nothing to do with murder or gunshots fired at all.
Exactly.
So where were the reports for all those other crimes other than just the whatever happened in the parking lot?
When you get a call, when a call comes into 911 center, they'll assign it based on whatever. In this area, it's a beat area, right? So you got beat areas, and I used to be in beat 4, which was Brown Avenue all the way down to Oakland Park, and it was a huge beat area. But they would assign those calls or 2 calls depending on the type of call it is. If it's requirement to have 1 or more people respond to that call, like a burglary call or something like that, then you dispatch the appropriate units, going to that call. Well, once you get to the call, you don't know exactly what you got when you get there. I mean, there's just all kinds of upheaval and things going on. But those charges, there could be multiple victims. There could be multiple residences involved. There could be multiple things that are stolen from each one of those things because you have to list each and every. If you got 4 victims and 4 different crimes have happened to each one of those victims, you got 4 victims. You may have 4 separate crimes. Then you've got whatever items were taken, if there was items that were taken, if there was a vehicle that was stolen in the result of that, or whatever.
How many counts of those?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. On all those, each item taken is a count. It might be a checkbook. It might be credit cards. It might be a gun. It might be somebody's gold bars in their safe. It might, whatever, the safe.
Yeah.
Those are individual thefts. And you can't blanket that as one theft. So what happens is, apparently, according to the police department, that was an archaic way of reporting it. And so when you hear city council members, they're going down and they're saying, wow, we got a 30% reduction in crime. Isn't that wonderful? You're not reporting the accurate statistics. And that's the problem is there. And look, I get the urgent sense that, this is an election year, and people are going, oh, no, we can't say that, we can't do that. That's not looking good. Look, as a mayor, folks, you see this paper? It's black and white with highlighted yellow and some red stuff, right? That's how I look at things, black and white. And yes, they're very damning results. Yes, they don't look good for Columbus. But I believe in the transparency issues that we report everything just like it needs to be reported, good, bad, or ugly. I always said that there's, for an infection, sunlight is the best thing that can happen.
Yeah.
Because once we get in there and we do that, then people know that we're being honest. People will come to us and they'll go, hey, I got this information. What do you think about that? But if you keep cutting them off and you keep telling them that their information is not important, and you send messages like this, that's the message you're sending. It's like,
yeah, they're just gaslighting us.
Yeah, and it doesn't look good. It's not a good look. It's bad that it's happening, and I get it. And people will point fingers at politicians, and they'll do those type of things. But you're being honest.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You're telling the honest thing, and nobody can fault you for being honest. Now, what they can fault you is maybe not doing your job enough, that you need to try harder in your job.
Yeah, and then it looks really bad when you try to double down.
Oh, yeah. And then when
which
you
is
get
what
caught,
we find.
yeah, when you get caught in a lie, then you got to do a lie to cover a lie, and a lie to cover that lie, and then pretty soon it's just all lies.
And then 40 years later, you get fired.
Yeah, and 40 years later, you get fired. Boom. There you have it. But these are the kind of things that, like I said, the other night, it felt, to me, I was not very comfortable. I wasn't very comfortable in what happened over there the other night. I really didn't. I showed up, and that's the thing. I showed up. And whether they disagree with me or not, it doesn't matter whether you did or not disagree, but I showed up, and I should get some credit for that. And I know who didn't show up. Now, Chris Brialt didn't show because apparently he had a family member, I think it was his mother or something. They had some kind of an emergency in it.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of crappy that they kind of gave him the hell that they did for not being there.
Yeah. Well, Wayne wasn't fair to the rest of.
I know, and that's why I was trying to play a little bit of compassion for Joanne as well.
Well, yeah, okay, but I did show up. So there's going to be tough decisions that have to be made, things that have to be talked about, and that's what we're doing. There was a lot of things talked about the other night. And I said, basically in my closing, I said, I'm pleased to share my vision for a safer, more productive Columbus community. I'm urging you to thoroughly research each and every candidate's platform and pose tough questions, especially regarding the specifics of their campaign initiatives. Now, I heard no specific questions to these candidates. Like, I've said time and time again, a lot of the questions came my way about, well, how are you going to solve this crime problem? I got a 5-step crime reduction strategy, and I can break it down for you. When we talk about transparency, we're going to do transparency. We're going to make sure everything is transparent. I'm going to publish a report card quarterly on the stuff that we did and didn't do, and I'm going to bring that up. It's going to be published. And then that way, at the end of a 4-year term, if you think that I've done a great job, if you haven't, then fire me. Reelect somebody else and let somebody else have a try. But I'm going to do my damnedest in trying to square away this mess that we're involved in. So,
well, I personally think that when they see what you're able to do and when they see your transparency and when they see that across the board that you are just, no matter what, that they're going to realize that either they were deceived or they were betrayed. Because I know that you and I did, we kind of had a rocky start in the beginning. But over the years, we have seen each other. We've been able to get past the outer, rough and stuff that sometimes we carry because we're both very much like aggressive warriors at times. We really care about justice, and it makes us a little too passionate sometimes. But one of the things that I stand by you for is because I know that no matter what, you're not going to change. Like, you are committed to all of this, and every single time that we talk, your answer never changes. And I see you do that you know, I see you do that in what you do, you know, working for the law enforcement that you do now. I've seen that in your previous runs. I've heard that in your speech. And so, like, out of everybody, I guess I would be biased to you because, I mean, like, I'm very much somebody who relies on fruit.
Yeah.
And your fruit has always been consistent.
Well, that's the thing is, you know, you tend to be biased because you've seen the performance of a person. He talks the same thing. He or she talks the same thing over and over again, whether I ran for sheriff or not, or now I'm running for mayor. And again, the news likes to, you know, they like to portray that as a negative balance, that I'm unsuccessful in the leadership and all that stuff. No, the bottom line is I'm a public servant. I've been a public servant since day one when I joined the military, which was well over now 45 years ago, 46 years ago, actually.
Do you mean that you're actually willing to do what the people ask you to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think
Okay.
because look, I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. I can't. There's no way. But you know what? I'm a very adaptable person, to the point a lot of people say, well, he's just an asshole. He's really, really rough and all that kind of stuff. Look, I'm willing to work with any politician. I'm willing to work whether you're Democrat or Republican. I don't care. I'm willing to work with you whether you're honest, whatever socioeconomic background you come from. I'm willing to work with people. Yes, I am tough. I always have been that way. But the reason I'm tough is because I want people to know right up front that I'm working as hard as I can for them, and I will work hard as I can for them. I'm not going to sit behind a city council chair or a table up there and sit there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years or 10 terms and just sit and listen to the garbage that I've listened to and no action. Finally, they took action, right, and terminated the city manager. And like I said, the only thing I fault with that agreement was the fact that I don't think the case, I think, needed to be exposed. We need to see more than 2 pieces of paper. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
so that's my opinion.
I think when you or any of the other non-incumbent candidates get in office, that there will be new things that come to light, and now the statute of limitations is open.
Yeah.
And so just because, and this is what I told somebody the other day, just because they leave office doesn't mean that they can't still be held liable.
Oh, no. You can still be held criminally liable, you know, morally liable because you didn't do what what you said you were going to do in your job. But that's the difference between me. I'm going to publish a report card. And right after, I will publish the first report card. It'll be up the first 100 days that I'm in office. I'm going to make sure that everything that I talked about and make sure that it's out there. We'll have, as mayor, we'll still run this podcast. I'll have it 2 or 3 times a week. And I told Chuck Williams this today. I said, I'm a hands-on person. If I tell you to go dig a ditch, I got a shovel in my hand too. And as soon as you get tired, I tell you get out of the ditch and I'm going in and to help. That's the way I've always been. And I was respected in the military for my position and the fact that I would, you know, I'm not beyond myself. I don't forget where I came from. And a lot of people have. They've forgotten where they came from, and I have not. It is an honor to serve the people. To me, it's an honor. And that's why I've lived all my life for 40 plus years, you know, and I'll say this and I say it again is, you know, my dad taught me something before he passed on. And I was 16 years of age. And he said, Mark, the only thing he said, you're not going to be rich or poor. He said, but all you got is your good name. And if you ruin your good name, you just have to do one thing and a lie after another lie and all that and other kind of stuff to cover it up. And I feel rich. I'm not because I make a lot of money or I make anything else, but I feel rich because of that advice my dad gave me. And it sticks with my mind. That was the last thing he said before he died. You know, so.
It's interesting that you say that because that's kind of like how my dad raised me, you know, that, you know, your integrity was tied to your name. And I think that's why I had such a hard time when people were trying to smear my name with, you know, lies and things like that, just because this is what I have found that the people in Columbus, especially in the government, like to do. They like to take anyone who's exposing what's going on, and then they they build the smear campaign or they mudsling. And so, like, I don't know, but I think about how you said that you're rich, you know, just in what you have. You know, I just think about how a lot of times, to me, I feel like if you can put your head on a pillow at night and know that you did the right thing, know that you lived a good life that day, like, you don't have anything to worry about.
No.
And it kind of just makes me sad for these people because they go to bed at night and they bear the burden of what they've done that day, or their conscience is so seared and they're so far gone in that way that they have really no understanding of what they're doing anymore.
No,
that's a really sad point.
Yeah, they push that away in their conscious mind, and they know that the only thing they can do is the day of reckoning comes. You know, forgiveness from, you know, ask for forgiveness in God. They're so far removed from everything that, you know, what I'm trying to say is try to make a difference in somebody's life on this earth, right? And you know, because once it's all done and said and it's over with and you pass on to the next life, whatever that is, we don't know. I've never been there yet, but I will tell you that there was somebody else that's in charge up there, okay? And, you know, if you are an influence and you can do something here in this life to make things better for a person, an idea, or anything else, do it. Try to do the best thing you can in this life. But don't say, you know, I've done this and, you know, I hope nobody knows about it, because if you're hiding something, somebody's going to find out. I don't care what it is. Well, you know, there's a history of things like that. And like I said, I never had a perfect life and things of that. All that. I grew up, I made some mistakes and stuff, but one of the things I tried not ever to do was recommit those mistakes.
Yeah.
Tried to learn from them, and the military taught me that, you know. When you have a backup plan, you have one plan, then you've got two backup plans in case any one of those fail. That's how I look at this mayoralship in the same light. I want to make sure that whatever plan that I have for that first 100 days, these things that are your campaign initiatives, that I have backup plan behind that in case it doesn't work, because eventually things do fail and you got to go back and you got to restructure yourself and redo what you got to do. But that's the beauty of being a leader, is making those decisions. But you know what, more importantly, listen to the people that are out there that are helping you out, because there's a lot of people out there who have great ideas. You know, they're great ideas. Listen to them. Like I said, folks, as a mayor, I need your help. I'm going to need your help as a mayor to make sure that the things, my campaign initiatives, are fruitful and that they do exactly what we want them to do. And if they don't, then we need to take a right turn and redo everything.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Okay, so we're coming up on an hour and 20, and I remember that you said that you weren't really asked a whole lot of questions. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
And I have seen a lot of other citizens ask this question, and it's almost, and it's not necessarily of you, it's a general question, because a lot of people are seeing the wrongdoing that has been going on in Columbus. They're seeing the money being misappropriated. They're seeing animals being mistreated. They're seeing citizens being ignored or denied. They're seeing their city that they love so much just be completely demolished. So the question that I have for you, and that most other citizens probably will want to hear, is, will you be more than just talk about people who are doing wrong, or when you find something that's been done wrong, or will there be arrests?
Oh, no, there'll be both. There's going to be both. If it warrants, where, again, you have to go, we talk about black and white, right? So statute of limitations is one issue, but you can reopen an investigation. Whether you can get a conviction on it or not, that's another story. You know, that's what DAs do. But my recommendation is to forward that, reopen the investigation. If it doesn't result in a conviction of some sort or an indictment, an indictment, then a conviction, but it does open it up to the public scrutiny. It does show, right? You can't gloss that over, because they want to throw it away and said, well, it didn't happen, so no, we can just throw that away. Kind of like what happened with the finance department, right? Well, no, absolutely not. If we have to relitigate that investigation, I'll open it up right? And I'll make sure that if there is some law, if we can get an indictment and a conviction, I'll reopen that investigation. I think that because for the very reason we talk about transparency. So yes, I will make sure that those investigations are opened. And even if we can't, you, the taxpayer, need to get the information, because what that does is hold your politicians accountable for doing or not doing their job. It's that simple. So yes, I will do all of those things. I will open an investigation. I will recommend, as a mayor, I'll recommend criminal charges. But again, that's a DA thing. And so if the DA is doing his job, or his or her doing their job, and they're not doing their job, that holds them accountable also.
Yeah, so bringing us to that point as well, I think about how Don Kelly, as our DA, when it came to that 118-page report, I really, I know that there are people who have their thoughts about him. I haven't ever talked to him in person, but I will tell you that I thought what he did, calling in a different prosecutor. What was the name? Was it like the Georgia Prosecutors Commission or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
And I really valued him doing that. And I was super excited about the first guy that was going to be the DA. And then I found out that it was Wayne Jernigan. And I was like, well, yeah, we can pretty much just kind of hang this one out to dry. So, I think about how if there are going to be prosecutions, like we need to make sure that our DA is on board. And if not, we need to petition to get a different DA.
Well, I agree.
Or not a different DA here, but like a different DA here. That's the case.
If it's somebody's appointed to that, you're absolutely right. There should have been a different result from that. But they did the old hot potato thing. They were like, whoa, here's the hot potato. You got it. You got it. You got it. No, I got it. No, you got it. That should have never happened. First of all, the mayor was wrong about calling in, asking the local sheriff's organization to do that investigation. You need to go outside that entity, right? Because the entity, who knows where the spider web goes? Does it go to the police department? Does it go to this agency? It goes to that one. Does it go to Public Works? Does it go? There's spider webs that go up from there. And then to get an organization to an effective investigation, it needs to be independent and outside of that jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So I think I would have called the FBI in. And that's just my opinion. I'm going to be honest. I'm not impressed with the GBI. I'm not impressed with what they do. Years and years ago, they used to be a very good investigation agency and very on time, on mark. And then this is just my personal opinion, folks. I'm not, and people are going to get keyboard warriors are going to get on and go, well, Joey said the GBI sucks. No, I didn't say that. I said that I am not impressed with their investigation skills.
Well, I know that I have done a lot of research when it comes to the things that the GBI has investigated because, I do advocacy for wrongfully incarcerated Black men in Georgia.
I know you do.
And, the common factor that I'm finding is that there's a lot of agents from the Columbus branch of the GBI. Mm-hmm. I haven't found anything with any other branch of the GBI. I'm seeing it with the Columbus branch. And I don't know how true this is. I haven't had time to follow up on it, but I just got word from one of the loved ones of an a person who is in Georgia prison right now. I'm trying to practice my language for Walisha coming in here. Mm-hmm. But I was told supposedly that when I had submitted my videos for the research that I had found of the GBI's ties, that supposedly that information was linked to 6 other exonerations because they saw my videos. And like I said, I don't know how true that is right now, but the cases that I was provided, looking in them, they had a lot of similar actors from the Columbus GBI branch. Mm-hmm. So when you say you would call in the FBI, my question to you then would be, would it be the Atlanta branch of the FBI or would it be a different one?
Well, I mean, there is a hierarchy, right? There's a in the military, we call that a chain of command, right? Mm-hmm. There's a chain of command that you have to utilize. You can't just go around everybody and utilize it. I would have to look at the Atlanta FBI. I'm going to tell you, Atlanta FBI at one time was a pretty good agency, especially around 1996 when the Olympic Park issue happened. Mm-hmm. Of course, there was a lot of other folks that were here the Atlanta FBI blossomed out into probably about the size of the FBI in DC. It was so big. It was so many things going on. But the reason I tell you that is because I was a bomb technician here in Columbus, and I had an FBI handler that was part of the bomb side of the house, because we were all, when the 96 Olympics came down, and I know I'm getting a little bit off track, but trying to build this up is the fact that he was a good agent, very good agent. And he looked out for his, the people, his downline people, which were the law enforcement agencies. That equipment came through him in monies and dollars, right? Mm-hmm. So I was very impressed on what he did. Now, I don't know so much about today because I don't deal directly with the FBI. I do deal on an indirect sense with the GBI. And I do speak with some of those folks, especially on the gang side of the house. I will tell you this, the GBI on the gang side of the house is very committed to their job. They're very good at what they do. And they're very committed to that. Now, I can't speak for any other side of the house, but I do know that some of the guys that they have, guys and gals that they have, are very good at what they do. You have to be. There's a certain level of classes that you have to understand what we just talked about, sets and all those things. And the gangs talk about emojis, how they use emojis and all that stuff, mm-hmm. and the way to use it. And it's a common language, and yep. they carry these books.
And they do it on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, they do it on Messenger. And, if you see a blood drop or a tear, that means that somebody got killed, a friend got killed, or they killed somebody, or, mm-hmm. Those are just basics, man. And there's hundreds of those things. But I would look at, to kind of roll this up on the end of it, is I would look at the local FBI here to look at the investigation locally. And if they need to forward that, if they didn't want to, again, that's the SAC, the special agent in charge, to forward that up to a higher level. So,
okay, so the reason I asked that is because over the years when I would find the stuff that I found with the research that I did for you, when I would find those places of what I consider and what the law seems to point to public organization or mm-hmm. Public corruption and organized crime. Mm-hmm. I would send all this evidence because I would compile it in a drive link and I would submit the FBI tip. Mm-hmm. I would do the GBI tip because I didn't really trust the GBI. And I was like, well, if the GBI won't do anything, maybe the FBI would, right? And so for a long time, I didn't think that anyone was getting my reports until I had put a report in for what was going on with Isaiah, the money and just the stuff with Greg Countryman and, the fraud and all mm-hmm. this other stuff. And it wasn't until I gave them Jay Nathan's information and then Jay Nathan said they came to his house that I was like, oh, okay. So they are investigating my complaints. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that started at the Columbus FBI. I don't even think that it started at the Atlanta FBI. Because I had to go directly to headquarters mm-hmm. to get that. And what's interesting is as I'm doing the same thing over in Marion County, I tried to call the headquarters line mm-hmm. and they have an automation where you put your information in, and for some reason it wouldn't take my name, so I got an agent. And the agent takes my name and she's like, hold on while I transfer you. And at that point I'm like, okay, because they're going to transfer me to the Columbus office because that's the mm-hmm. closest one. And do you know, when I got transferred, I got an automated message that said, you have been deemed as a repeat tipster. Thank you. Have a good day. And they hang up on me.
Oh, no.
And I was like, are you serious? I was like, so repeat crimes. Repeat crimes, repeat criminals. And I'm making these reports of these multiple crimes mm-hmm. that these people are doing and these multiple criminals. And I'm the one getting flagged as a repeat tipster, and you're not even going to hear my complaint anymore.
So that's where we come down to a lot of times you've got to use influence that's higher than you. I'm not saying you're not important, and you are.
No, important. I get it, and I'm not offended.
Yeah. But the bottom line is when you don't get the results that you're getting, you should be able to turn to that local politician that's there that you – like a mayor, like a sheriff, like a city manager, And you should get answers, because they will get answers if they
Yeah,
go.
but these people don't want to.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. If you call the mayor's office, which if we don't have a hotline there, we're going to establish a hotline to make sure. And I want to make sure that we get the calls and that everything's on the board. Everything is pertinent, because you are the taxpayer. You are the people that are bringing the complaint forward. You need to have answers. And that's the problem. We've had people in these positions that have not gotten their positions of authority and didn't get the answers for the people. It just blew them off. And that's not what I represent. And that's where I think that I can be a difference in that, is that, my God, hey, the Columbus mayor just called, and we need to take a look at this.
Yeah.
I think that influence is always a good thing if it's used in the right way.
Well, and I think honestly that's the problem, is that we've had these people that have been sitting in these seats as public officials, which are, and I'll say this probably until I die, they are trustees for as long as they're in. That's contractual, okay?
Right.
And they are public servants. They're not masters. They're not leaders. They're not the ones who have the ultimate authority, okay? They are the ones who, just like you said, they are supposed to serve, okay? And they're only given the power that they have so that the collective people can have one person to be the voice, to be the hands, to be the feet of, hey, we need this done. And really, I believe it's because all the people collectively, we're out making the money, right? We're out doing what we need to do, so that we can put that money into taxes. We can put that money into the pay for our public servants. We can make sure that our economy is right, make sure that our houses, are paid for. And, so it's supposed to be something that we all collectively do. And I feel like these people that are currently sitting are incumbents, okay, that they have become entitled, that they have had big heads and they forget their place. And I am taking my duty and I am doing my diligence to make sure that we're putting perspective and putting those rules back in the right place.
A public official shouldn't feel comfortable in their job. No, not at all. You should not feel comfortable in the job. You should always, the way you always look at anything on a daily basis and how you talk to the constituents or your taxpayers or however you want to entitle them, the bottom line is you serve them. And they should be feeling like they got due justice. Yeah. They should feel like that you answer their call. Everything from a trash can to code enforcement. And, there's another one. Code enforcement. So the sign Nazi lady, as I was coming down here today, and I'm getting on another track here, but I got to get this out. She passed by 10 signs, picked up one, passed by 10 different signs, and Isaiah Hughley was on 3 of them on one side. Just kept driving like, I don't see nothing here. I don't see anything here. And there were like a dozen signs that she passed by and just kept right on going. So there's selective sign enforcement, code enforcement. And I talked about this the other night at the Citizen Service Center at the council chambers, is that code enforcement is not doing their job. I just verified it today that person was not picking up signs. If you're picking up one, pick them all up, okay? Pick them all up. Don't selectively enforce them,
And that's another evidence that this is not nonpartisan.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. Well, listen, we've been going for, how long we've been going now?
An hour and 23 minutes.
Okay, hour 23 minutes. I didn't want to really go that long, but we did. When these subjects come up, they are very interesting in what we got to do. But I just want to cover some administration stuff really quick. Folks, advanced voting starts on Monday, the 27th of April. It starts at 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock p.m. The sites, there are 3 service sites that you can go vote at. One's the City Service Center, which is in the community room downstairs of the Citizen Service Center. Going around to the main entrance now, you can't go through the side anymore. You got to go around back through where the parking garage is at. Go there. You go through the metal detector and go in and vote. So it's impertinent that you get out there. This is the 2 weeks of early voting. The second site is Northside Recreation Center. It was at 2010 American Way, Columbus, Georgia. And then you have the Shirley Winston Recreation Site, 5025 Stimmiel Road, which is on the east end. And then there's a collection drop box, which I hate. I hate drop boxes because they were so, fraudulent back in the 2020 election because I was watching ballots being stuffed in them. I hate that. But the ballot collection drop box location is a citizen service center. During the hours of advance voting only, drop box closes at 7 p.m. May the 15th. And I believe the drop box is now relocated inside. It's inside the building next to where the deputy's at. So that's there, which is, I guess, some kind of progress. But folks, I'm gonna make it well known. I don't like Dominion. I never have. I think that the 2020 elections, all of them, including the local elections, were cheated on. There's no doubt in my mind they were on there. I won't get into the details about it right now, but the bottom line is we know it happened. Now there's Fulton County people coming down on indictments and everything. It was like, and that was supposed to be a good run system. Yeah, well, I think we need to go back to paper ballots. They need to take the barcodes and all that crap off there.
Hey, so real quick, touching on that, did you know that it's actually a requirement for the elections office to make sure that they have enough paper ballots in case the devices don't work? So I thought that was kind of interesting.
The last one, they took them offline, and then we were told that they would zero out, and then there's all this ambiguity about whether they were zeroed or not zeroed and brought back online, and this stuff,
But why are you even zeroing them out at all in the middle of an election?
Well, I would rather start off with a clean slate, knowing that box, you counted all the votes in that box, then you zeroed it out, you counted them, then they went in to whatever they went into, and that was done. Then you bring a fresh one online and you recount the next day all those counts. But they were bringing them out and bringing them back online again. And were they zeroed out? Was those accountable for? Who knows? And we had ballot watchers or working up there on those sites, and there was complaints coming out. And of course, I won't get into that history of it because there's a long history on that. But yeah, so those are the advanced voting sites. The other thing we want you to do is like and share this Facebook.
And subscribe.
And subscribe, please. The last results that we got were, I just looked from my media consultant, were 72,000, over
That's
72.
Awesome.
That's
just within the last week? Or?
Yeah. And, that goes along with the fact that, when you share that, it gets important because this win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter what happens in this election. I would prefer to win, actually, And even if I do, this podcast will be a public service podcast. We'll talk about things. We'll have call-ins where we'll advance to that level where you'll be able to call in as a citizen and ask the mayor a question. I remember, that we had those programs on WTVM and the call-ins, and that was interesting to me. That was very interesting that we knew that you could get your questions answered, asked and answered. And a lot of people called in. It was interesting, and I'd love to bring those back. But, the way it is today, we're going to bring it back in a different setting, which is a podcast, which is really
That's
popular.
what today was supposed to be about because, we started it, but we had a rocky start, and I saw people drop off, and, so the ask and answer didn't quite happen. But
it didn't quite happen. But we'll work out the bugs that, with a new set of people. You're always going to have some rough, rocky road, and and I don't expect perfection right out from the top, but tomorrow we're going to get perfection. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not working tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you working tomorrow?
No, actually, I'm off tomorrow, so that's a good thing. But folks, those are early voting sites. I really want you to understand who I am. I want you to understand that, yes, I'm a very tough guy. I expect things to be done, but I am flexible. I know that a lot of people don't see that side of me. They don't see the soft side of the flexibility that I have. But again, I'm willing to work with anybody, any socioeconomic background. I don't care. There are groups that need to be represented at the table, and we're going to make sure that they're represented well. So those are the things that, that I like to see. And again, you vote me in after 4 years. If you don't like what I've done, vote me out. I mean, I don't believe in hanging around just because to hang around. The reason I'm running is to make a difference here in Columbus. I mean, this Columbus area has been so fraudulent for over 100 years. There's so many big families that were involved in this plot, and they still are. Look at the campaign contributions.
But they're drying up.
They're finally drying up, yeah. But they don't like it because they can't manipulate me. And that scares them. That scares the hell out of those families. Like, oh my God, can't have him in there. He's not going to be looking out for us. No, actually, I am going to be looking out for you, but in the legal way, in the right way, to make sure that everything is distributed evenly and things are done evenly. And again, I'm not perfect, but I need your help. And you're going to give that. So I want you to vote for me, Mark LaJoy. 27th starts the early voting for 2 weeks. Then it drops off. And of course, Super Tuesday is May 19th. And 7 to 7, polls open up. Polls close at 7. And hopefully by that night, we'll have whoever our new mayor is going to be, or whoever's going to be the new runoff in the mayor, because I don't think there's going to be a majority vote. I think we're going to go into a runoff. And, of course, that'll extend beyond that, probably, I don't know, maybe 1 June or something, whatever, how that shakes out. But that's all we got. Folks, if you have any questions, by all means, get on our Facebook and answer those questions, and we'll try to get them answered in a timely manner. If you want to carry anything out.
Yeah, I was just going to wrap it up in prayer like we normally do.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right. So, Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this time. We thank you, Father God, that even when we make mistakes, that you are still patient. I thank you that you're forgiving, especially when we are doing our best to learn something new. I thank you, Lord, for the changes that you have brought to Columbus, Georgia. I thank you, Lord, that you truly see a city that you want to build, that you want to reflect in a glorious way. I think that the people, Lord, that they are being inclined to you. And so, Lord, I just ask right now with the upcoming mayoral election that, Lord, you would not allow anyone to sit in this seat, God, if they are not willing to serve you or your people. I think about how a lot of these people that are currently sitting go to church and they say that they represent you. But, Lord, their fruit says otherwise. So, Lord, just build the people up. Open their ears, open their eyes, open their hearts, Lord, and let them see that the fight is not amongst each other, that there is unity that you are wanting to bring to these people. And it's only when we come together that we will be able to establish true dominion, not the system, true dominion in Columbus, Georgia. So bless everyone that hears this podcast, Lord, whether they hear it now, whether they hear it after the fact. And Lord, just continue to bring your glory and let your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen, folks. God bless you all. Hopefully you have a fruitful and safe evening. And we'll see you again on the next broadcast. Goodbye. Good night.